the jacket's going.
Yep. Testing 1 2 1 2. I love Ellie Darby.
Good luck. Give you a call if you need me. Come on, Herbie. We're leaving Mum to do this. Come on.
Good boy. Love you.
Love you.
Hello, angels. Welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. Nearly 2 months since I last uploaded a video, apart from last week when I uploaded the tribute video to my mum, which I want to just start off this video by saying I'm huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the love and support that you shared on that video. It meant the absolute world to me. Today's video is going to be a little bit different to what you are used to seeing on my channel. And I want to just start off by saying that if you are new to my channel, then hello and welcome. If you found me through searching on the internet of things like dealing with loss, losing my parent, losing my mum, cancer, brain tumour, I just want to say I am sending you all of the love and positive vibes and energy that I can possibly muster up for you, and I'm sending it in a big hug to you right now across the screen. I have searched for a video that I am hopefully going to be able to bring you guys today for the last 5.5 years. If you are watching this from a position of desperation to find somebody to relate to, I really hope I can be the person to make you see that you are not alone. And today I'm going to be speaking about dealing with the loss of my beautiful mum, Mrs. Deborah Jane, who I lost to a 5.5-year battle against a brain tumour on Mother's Day, the 22nd of March 2020. First of all, I feel like this is going to be a long video, the one similarity I feel like it will have to all of my other videos is that you are going to need to have a big cup of tea and biscuits. You're going to need to get yourself comfy and cozy, get a blanket, get someone to hug, and let's begin. I have asked you guys to send me in some questions and topics specifically related to grieving and losing a parent and dealing with cancer that I will be going over at the end of this video, but I feel like to start off it's really important to talk about my journey and my mum's journey. My mum's cancer is not something I really ever touched upon on my YouTube channel throughout the last 5.5 years. She was first diagnosed in August 2014. I was 18 years old, my younger sister Katie was 15. I was just about to start university. I was 1 month away from starting university. I had just met my boyfriend, Connor, who you guys just saw in the introduction. I was 18, I felt like I had the rest of my life ahead of me. I had just got back from travelling across Europe with my best friend for a few weeks, about a month. When I came back and I was told the news, and it was actually only a couple of months after my mum was diagnosed that I started my YouTube channel. So you guys, believe it or not, some of you that have watched from day one have actually been on this entire journey with me without knowing it, which is a really, really special thing for me to have. I feel so lucky to have had you guys as my friends and my support throughout this time, even though you haven't known it. Before I get into the depths of my mum's story, I was looking for somebody to relate to for literally every single step along my mum's journey with her cancer, which is why it's so important for me to make this video today, because if I can make somebody feel just that tiny little bit less alone, then my job here is done as far as I'm concerned. You are so overwhelmed with so much love and support when you are just kind of like thrown into the war zone that is cancer. You have support from friends, from family, from boyfriends, girlfriends, from nurses, from therapists, from doctors. There is so much support, but unfortunately, cancer is one of those things in life that it is one of the most isolating situations that you can be in. And I don't care what anybody says, unless you know somebody that is going through it as well, or has gone through it and come out the other side, it is really difficult to understand how the hell you're going to make it through. And I felt like that at every single stage, as I've just said. I felt like that at diagnosis, I felt like that on the 1 year mark, 2 year mark, 3 year mark, 4 year mark, 5 year mark, when we were told it was going to be 3 months, when we were told she wasn't going to make it to Christmas, the first time I saw her have a seizure, the first time I saw her deterioration getting really bad and she could no longer walk and she was moved into a chair, all the way up to 10 days before she took her last breath and she was put on a syringe driver on a bed at home, right up to the day that she did pass, and for the last 6 weeks of grieving. Every single step I have just like begged from the universe to be able to have somebody to relate to. So if you are going through it, I really want you to know that you're not alone. I promise you're not alone. I know it's something that everybody says, but this is why it's so important for me to make this video, because I wish I could just go back to the girl I was throughout all of those stages and just give her a big hug and say, I know you feel like no one's got you and that you're really unsafe, but you've got yourself and you're not the only one to have been through this. So I'd like to start with speaking about my mum. My mum was one of the most amazing women I'd actually ever met, and she was my rock. We had been through so much together in life pre-cancer anyway. Every family has their things that they go through, right? But we had a lot of trauma in our life and lots of things that we got through together, me and my mum and my younger sister Katie. It was always us three. When we were given the diagnosis, which was when I was 18 years old, August 2014, the subject of cancer and the brain tumour, it was a real almost taboo subject actually in our family. I don't remember speaking to anybody about it for the first two to 3 years, unless something kind of triggered the conversation because something had happened, such as she had had a seizure or she had a scan, you know, something where it's like literally forced in front of your face and you have to think about it and you have to talk about it. A lot of people around me, their way of dealing with it was by not thinking about it and kind of going on as normal as possible, and that was one of the most important things for my mum. My mum made it incredibly clear that from her diagnosis she didn't want to know anything about the cancer, to the point where she would not go to hospital appointments, she wouldn't go to scan results. It was me and my mum's partner who would go and do those things. We would take every care in the world to grant my mum's wishes and to make sure that she was never subject to bad news, and that continued all the way through to the very end. At the end of cancer, if some of you guys watching have been through it, you'll know that it is absolutely heart-shattering. There's no words to describe how heartbreaking it is to watch somebody's life just so dramatically deteriorate. So even at all of these stages, you know, when she started to become incontinent, when she was put in a chair, when she could no longer go upstairs to go to bed because she couldn't make it up there, when I had to start washing her and doing her hair and things like that. At every stage we would just make a joke out of it and we would just be like, yeah, do you know what, it's just because you're having a little bit of a bad day, it doesn't matter. It did of course make it hard at times. For me, you know, hearing bad news about her and about how like I had a year at maximum left with my mum in my early 20s, knowing I have to do the rest of my entire life without her. The one person I wanted to speak to was her, but I couldn't because it would break her heart and it would be going against her wishes, and that was hard. That was really hard at every stage, you know. But we did it, and I'm really proud. So for the first 3 years of the cancer, because we didn't really speak about it, I didn't really know too much about what was going on, primarily because there weren't that many complications with the actual tumour itself. We were just going for regular hospital scans. She obviously was having treatment every now and then. She had surgery, she had chemotherapy, and she had radiotherapy at the initial start of the diagnosis. From then on, for a while, it was just the symptoms that caused much more bother in trying to live normal life and kind of coming, you know, as roadblocks in that. Things like seizures were a huge symptom for my mum, and they were so scary. Like, I still have nightmares about the seizures. They were really traumatizing. The cancer was on the brain. It was so hard. I mean, this is kind of going into one of the questions that lots of you guys were asking me about how it is to kind of grieve for somebody when they're still alive, which was definitely something I had to deal with. Brain tumours are a nasty form of cancer. They are horrible. It controls your whole body, doesn't it, your brain? So it was hard. It was just, I don't think I need to explain how hard it was. I think you guys can kind of get a grasp. But I was certainly grieving for my mum long before she went, years before she went. She was no longer the woman that I knew to be my mum from about a year in. It's like I had to kind of develop this whole new relationship with her, even though we were trying to keep things as normal as possible. It was like I was honestly learning about a whole new person. At the just gone 4-year mark in September 2018, she had a scan, and we were called not only to the Bath hospital, which is where her usual consultant was. We were actually told to go to a big hospital in Bristol with a specialist. So we kind of knew it wasn't going to be great news. But at this point we had kind of been like running on our hopes, I suppose, because there didn't seem to be any major transformation in the tumour in like 3 years, 4 years at this point. I mean, obviously we had ups and downs with it, but there was no like major issue with the tumour. Like I said, it was mainly just the symptoms that really affected our daily life. So we were called into this specialist appointment at the Bristol hospital, and the guy sat us down, and within 10 minutes he had told us that the tumour had developed from being a grade 3 to a grade 4. And if you guys don't know about the grades of cancer, grade 4 is the worst. We were told that the only thing they could do was to do a surgery, which when he first said it, it was like, okay, she's been through a surgery before. You know, when she was first diagnosed back in September 2014. But this one was going to be a hell of a lot more different. This surgery was to be far more invasive because the tumour was on a spot of her brain which controlled her memory and her speech. There was no way that they could guarantee what she would be able to remember and how her speech would be. Depending on how the surgery went, it could kind of just completely destroy both of those aspects of her. So the only way they could do this surgery was to have her awake while they were operating on her brain, which, when you're told that literally like 2 minutes after being told it's a grade 4 tumour, it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. It's almost like the whole world could have crumbled and I wouldn't have noticed, because I was just so in myself. I don't really know how to describe it, but you know when you have one of those moments in life that you just think, hang on a minute, what? I mean, even speaking about it now, it just sounded barbaric. And I remember thinking, why her? Why my gorgeous, selfless mum? It's really easy in moments like that to just get really caught up on why me? I'm a victim, things like that. But I didn't find myself that thinking like that was productive in any way, shape or form. The more I found that I kind of like dwelled on how unfair it all was, I just personally found that I was a lot better at coping with it if I tried to stop thoughts like that, because once you're dealt these cards in life, your options are to either run away and never deal with it, or face it head on and get through it the best you can and grit your teeth and get through the pain. And it's moments like that that really taught me that. A couple of weeks later, I drove her to the hospital. She went into the surgery. She was so brave that day, like I can't even explain to you. What is really important about this point in the journey with our cancer was that it was like the real turn point. Up until this point, it had been so easy to just kind of like almost not even acknowledge that my mum had a brain tumour. Like, I would actually sit and think to myself before September 2018, my mum has a brain tumour, but it doesn't feel like it because we don't act like that. But then in September 2018, everything changed. She had the surgery and we were told that because of the nature of the tumour, she had no longer than 14 months left to live, which took it up to Christmas 2019. Obviously, throughout that whole year, it was like trying to live in an imaginary world where nothing wrong was happening, and I had to try and continue on with my normal life as much as possible, because we can never let that information be leaked to my mum. These were the real testing moments. It was moments like this that I just really wanted to ring her up and be like, why? After the surgery, the tumour came back. Obviously they removed as much as they could, but we always knew it was going to grow back. Fast forward to June 2019, Connor and I were in Barcelona. I had taken him to Barcelona for his birthday, and we would do some scan results, because at this point she was having regular scans. The scan results came back, and that was when we had the first really scary diagnosis of she's only got about 3 to 4 months left to live. Needless to say, that was one of the weirdest holidays of my life. 3 to 4 months passed. We're now in kind of September, October. And there's no level of significant deterioration by my mum. I mean, throughout the last 5 years at this point, there of course had been deterioration, but it had been incredibly slow. There had been nothing sudden that had been like, oh my god, okay. Like, it was just like we just all got used to the way she was at this point. Her major symptoms were kind of like, she couldn't really see out of one eye at all. Because obviously that was where the tumour was sitting, on her vision and memory and speech side of things. Her speech at this point wasn't great, but you could definitely, like, it was fine. She would just forget for ages, like, names of people or things or something. She'd be saying a sentence and she wouldn't be able to finish it because she couldn't remember what the word was that she was trying to say. And she always comforted herself with this, saying it's just because of my age, it's just because of my age, all my friends are the same. She always managed to find a joke out of the situation. Yeah, you know, we'd been given this diagnosis and kind of nothing was really happening with it, so we asked for another scan just to be aware of what was going on. I mean, obviously at this point, Hope had kind of left the building, but you do just kind of still live in this fantasy world where you're like, maybe it's gone. I don't know, like, you don't even have thoughts like that, but you just, at the same time, you deep down, you just don't believe that it's actually gonna come to an end. You just don't. You just think, no way. She obviously had another scan, and in November we got the results of that scan, and they said if she makes it to Christmas, she's really lucky. So then again, December comes around. 9th of December is my birthday. She was round here partying with everybody. I cannot explain to you how on edge you feel in moments like this when you've literally been told they have X amount of time left to live. And it's like you're just constantly watching out for these levels of deterioration. But in my mum's case, where they didn't come, it was just the most confusing thing I've actually ever been through in my entire life. I was just like, what is reality? What is this doctor wrong? Is my mum some sort of anomaly in brain tumour statistics? Like, I had no idea. 11th of December came around. She comes out for a cream tea with me for a birthday celebration. She's doing well, like she's fine, she's out and about. Then Christmas Day comes around, and Christmas Day 2019 was the first time I remember thinking, so this is what they were talking about. My mum was in a really confused state on the evening of Christmas Day when we had all the family round. Brain tumours are notorious for so many horrible symptoms, but confusion is a big one. It's kind of like they're living in their own little world a bit, which is fine because in my mum's case, it was like so nice to chat to her, and she was feeling good and feeling happy and kind of living away from reality in her head. She was just quite happy. But on Christmas Day, she was really confused, and she thought that we had like all swapped around our presents and we didn't tell her, and she was just like really furious about the whole thing. And it was not nice to see her like that at all, because there's kind of nothing that you can really say to calm them down. Then on the 27th of December, she had a fall, which was the first sign of her body kind of giving up a little bit. Her coordination was one of the biggest things that she really suffered with in the last couple of months, and on the 27th of December she had a fall. She went to hospital. We kind of asked them to check for infections and things like that, but they said no, it is just the deterioration. So at this point it was kind of like, so it's actually happening then, you know, you're kind of forced to see it. I spent every single day with her from then on. There were certain milestones in those last 3 months of her life that were just really heartbreaking to witness, and I remember that's what really got me by, though, at the same time, as having those like milestones of, as horrible as it sounds, like her level of deterioration, because I could grasp onto the fact that yes, I might have to wash her, but at least she's still talking to me. Yes, I might have to help her come back from the toilet, but she still knows who I am, and she still is eating and drinking and things like that. Your mind goes into an incredibly strange state, actually, when you're in that sort of situation. I found myself becoming a lot more like self-aware, a lot more observant of everything, a lot more anxious. It was hard for me to get any rest at all, really. You know, I'd come back to my house after spending all day with her, and I just wouldn't be able to have a break from it in my head. It just takes over everything, and when you're in that moment, it's very hard to understand that there will come a day when it doesn't control your life anymore. It's very hard trying to realise that when you're in the depths of it. Thursday the 12th of March was one of the 2 worst days of my entire life. Thursday the 12th of March, I woke up, got ready, we went to go and pick up our new car, our new Range Rover that we were vlogging, and I was so excited to pick up. Just as we arrived at the car dealership, I had a phone call saying that my mum had had a really bad night and that she was being sick throughout the night, basically, which was never a good sign. At that stage, she was on steroids to kind of try and stop as much of the symptoms of the tumour coming through as physically possible. She was on the highest steroid dosage that she could have been on, and it worked fabulously for a few weeks. But whenever she needed to go on to a higher dosage when she was on the lower levels, the thing that always gave it away was that she would be being sick. So I was like, right, okay. We picked up the car. About 2 hours later I went round, and There was nothing that could have prepared me for what I saw. I had never been told or discovered that they go into like this state. And I don't want to go into it too much because I know that this is a very emotional topic and I'm going to get upset and you're probably going to get upset if you've been through it and you know what I'm talking about. But I was always told that they were going to just get to a point where they're really drowsy and they kind of sleep a lot and they could just kind of like drift off. But when I walked in that day, she was just led on the hospital bed that we had. We chose to keep her at home. It's what she wanted. She never ever ever wanted to go into a hospice or anything like that, or to hospital, obviously because she didn't want to know anything about what was going on. It was really important to her that she had her home comforts, and it is one of the best things actually I think I've ever done, is to be able to be a part of granting my mum that wish of staying at home. It was so special to me and my sister and to the rest of the family to be able to just walk into the living room and just see her there instead of having to drive into a hospice. At the same time, obviously everything with the coronavirus was kind of starting, so we weren't on lockdown, we weren't near it, but people were starting to be a bit careful, and places like hospices and hospitals were starting to incorporate rules of really strict visiting hours. So I'm always so grateful whenever I think back to that time that I was never any more than 10 meters away from her. In that state, she didn't really have very many waking moments at all. I could count the times that she was awake and speaking to me on one handful, but then she would always kind of drift back to sleep after about 10 minutes. Those waking moments were full of tears, happy tears. I remember thinking at the end of every one, oh my God, that's my last conversation with her. And on the last conversation that we did have, it's so strange. Maybe I'll do a whole other video on kind of like signs and paranormal activity and things like that. But on that day that we had our last conversation, she was like, "You alright?" And I said, "Yeah, you alright?" She said, "You must be being so brave." And I cannot even explain to you how much my jaw dropped when she said that, because at all of the other waking moments she'd been so confused about what she was saying. She wasn't living in the reality. She was kind of like just, you know, saying funny things and things like that. But in this last conversation she had with me, she was so in the moment and she so knew what was going on. And she said to me, "You must be being so brave." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I'm ready." And I said, "How are you feeling?" And she said, "A bit nervous." And I said, "Have you seen Uncle Peter?" Which was her uncle that had passed, that we always said kind of looked after her. We had loads of kind of funny signs throughout our lifetime together, that he was like around. And I said, "Have you seen Uncle Peter?" And she said, "Yeah." And then it was about 3 days after that conversation that she took her last breath. I really hope that in telling my story, it brings comfort to at least one person that is watching this. It's the hardest story I actually think I'm ever going to have to tell. But I feel like by sharing just a slice of my vulnerability, and one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through in my entire life, with you guys, is really important to me, in the hopes that it can just make one person feel a little bit less alone. Even though it's a hard story to tell, unfortunately for a lot of people it is reality, and I think we should all stick together through it. Lots of people have asked lots of lovely questions, but loads of them were just kind of like the same question but worded a bit differently, so I've summarised a few of them up for you guys and I'm going to run through them now. Going back to the question of dealing with grief while somebody is still alive, and dealing with the change of their appearance and dealing with the change of their personality and the way they live their life, especially if it's a parent. As I said, this is definitely something I had to just grit my teeth and go through the pain of for the last 5.5 years. There are so many aspects of my journey with losing my mum that I would actually argue like are the worst ones, but they're all equally just horrible. And that was a thing, dealing with trying to get to know a new mum, but at the same time she's still the same, and dealing with the change of her appearance, and dealing with, you know, like ultimately having to become the carer in a mother and daughter relationship. It's hard. A parent, especially a mum, is somebody that you rely on so heavily, literally from the minute you are conceived. So I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for any aspect of it, really. I don't think there's anything that can prepare a woman in her late teenage years or 20s to have to deal with the heartbreaking trauma of losing her mum, and knowing that she's literally got to go through the rest of her life without that mother figure, without that one person on the entire planet that is bound to loving you unconditionally. You will never get somebody love you as much as your mum does in the way that she does. So dealing with the way that she changes before, one of the things that I found really helped was just trying to make it as light-hearted as possible. You know, my mum would really help me with that, in the sense that she would be like forgetting these names or forgetting these words, and she'd be like laughing about it and saying like, oh, I'm just getting so old, my silly brain, blah blah blah. So it was easy to joke with her in that sense, making light-hearted moments out of it, as hard as that can be in some moments, and trust me, I get it. And there are really dark moments of it where it's so inappropriate to make it light-hearted and fun. But in the moments that you can, I think that's important. I also just think, and I know this is going to sound funny because obviously it's a given, but loving them wholeheartedly with no judgment or no anger towards the situation about the cancer and the fact that they're leaving is one of the most important things that got me through it. At every single stage where it got a bit harder or a bit more sad to see her like that, I just loved her. I tried to love her even more than I could have before, and I hugged her so hard, and I told her 20 times a day how much I loved her, to the point where she would literally be like, I get it. I think the more that you're there for them, and the more that they can see that they can kind of lean on you and feel loved by you, the more easier it's actually going to be for you, I think. Some of the most cherished moments out of mine and my mum's entire life together are those moments in those last few months where I was washing her hair, I was washing her, I was cleaning her food up from her, I was taking her to the toilet. All of those things that could have been so traumatic and horrible to see and go through. I just did it with as much love and as much care as I possibly could, because it was so important to me that I made my mum feel so special in those moments. And they're some of my favourite memories that I'll ever have, because it was just our time together, and I'd do anything for her, you know. You've just got to go with it and try and do it with as much love and as care as possible. Another really big question was about when is it okay to kind of move on and live life again, which is something I don't really feel like I have too much advice on, because my entire grieving process, we've actually been in lockdown in the UK for the coronavirus, so I have not been able to see any of my friends or family. I've not been able to go out and live my normal life again. I've actually had to get used to a whole new reality of life. One thing I have noticed is that in the start I would really beat myself up about the moments that I felt relief in any sense, and I feel like that is something that a lot of people, if they haven't been through the same situation, would quite easily be able to judge. How can you feel relief after? How can you possibly feel like you've had a weight lifted off your shoulders when you've just lost your mum? And it's not like that in senses and everything else in the world when you feel relief or you've had like a weight lifted off your shoulders. The last 5.5 years was so mentally exhausting that you do just naturally get a sense of she's at peace, finally. It was torment to watch her go through what she did. My mum was one of the most glamorous, proud woman, beautiful woman that you've ever seen in your entire life, and for her to get to the stage that she did in the last few months of her life, I know that if the woman that she was before the cancer saw the state of her life and the things that she was doing and the way that she would have run out of there like a shot. And I know that she would have been so grateful to now be free of that human body that didn't serve her any purpose at all. I think it's really important not to be judgmental of the way you feel, especially if you do feel those moments of grief relief, I suppose you could call it. And you can do that whenever is right for you. If you feel relief 1 hour after it's happened, or a day or a week or a month, that is down to you and it's your journey. Everybody's journey with grief is different, but it does last forever. There are going to be moments for the rest of your entire life where it affects you. I feel like lots of people that haven't necessarily been through loss think grief is like a 6-month thing, where if you're not over it by 6 months or a year or whatever it is, then you've not dealt with it very well and there's something wrong with you. But actually, grief is something you carry with you forever. And I don't mean that in a morbid sense. I mean that as in, there are going to be moments where you wish they were right next to you. I know for a fact, when I am choosing my wedding dress, when I am getting ready for my wedding day, when I find out I'm pregnant, when I am giving birth to my first child, when I turn 30, when I turn 40, when I hit retirement, there are always going to be these moments in life that I just want to ring my mum, and that's never going to go away. And nobody should expect that of you, for it to go away. It's not wrong for you to cry 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. And I think that's such a harsh preconception that society's kind of placed on us. Grief is a lifelong thing, so you move on whenever you feel ready to, because you're the person that has to carry this around with you forever. So as far as I'm concerned, you do whatever makes you happy the second you want to do it. If you want to go out clubbing 2 days after, you do that. If that's going to bring you happiness, if that's going to make you feel like you have a sense of your normal life, go for it. You've been through enough trauma. Don't be judgmental on yourself of how you deal with it, of how you grieve. That's not fair. You've had enough unfairness in your life, don't you think? So don't judge yourself for the way that you are in your grief. I've also had loads of questions on how to support a partner. I think what's really important of helping somebody go through their grief, when it's not you directly, but it's like somebody that you really love and care about. Leading back on from my last point, is so important not to judge them for how they are and how they're dealing with it. People will grieve in so many different ways. Some people will grieve by crying every day for a really, really long time, falling into a deep pit of really negative emotions, and all they want to do is talk about it, and that's fine. That's their way of dealing with it. Some other people might never want to talk about it and they just want to move on. That's also fine. Nobody is wrong for how they grieve, and as their partner or their friend or whoever it is to you, it's so important to just respect the way they're grieving, and maybe have a conversation with them before it happens, you know, the lead up to it or after, and just say, look, how do you want to deal with this and how can I help you? And that's the way you're going to be able to get the best advice, is from them directly. One day they will want to talk about it. If they haven't wanted to talk about it, one day they will. There will be something that will kind of trigger their emotions about it. And as long as they know that they can come to you because you've been there for them throughout the whole thing and you've shown endless love and support and non-judgment, then that is going to be when it counts. Myself, with my grief journey, I have been very up and down. There are huge waves of grief that I get all of a sudden, and I haven't had one for about a week or so. They were quite regular within the first sort of month, and nothing would trigger them actually. I mean, of course, sometimes something would trigger it, like a picture of her or I have so many voicemails on my phone of her that I just like to hear her voice. So some things might trigger it, but sometimes they come completely out of the blue. And these waves of grief I can't really explain. They are like somebody is literally ripping my heart out from my chest. And the physical pain is so bad. And you have like this overwhelming yearning of wanting to hug them, touch them, smell them, kiss them, hear their voice, see their smile. But you can't. And then you get an overwhelming like dread of having to do the rest of your life without that ever again. And these for me can last for like maybe an hour. Then it's done and I'm all cried out, and it happens again a week later. But that physical pain is so much that it's really important to me when I am feeling okay that I literally cherish those moments. One thing I've learned since my mum's passed is extreme gratitude for the most simple of things, literally even breathing, or having my heart beat against my chest when I'm running or doing exercise, or hearing the birds sing in the morning. All of these things, that it's just normal life, it's just given, but you just have this like undying gratitude for it, because my mum can't do that anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm so grateful about being alive and being here, and everything I do now is for her. Like everything. Like I'll literally mow the lawn and be like, that's for you, mum. Because I know that she'd be pleased that I mow the lawn. Another thing that I've had since losing her is like everything that I do for the first time again has an extreme significance. It gives me a lot of anxiety actually to do these things again, and it could be literally anything. I remember literally the first time I had cornflakes, I was like, this is the first time I'm having cornflakes since. First time speaking to people is another really big thing for me. Like at first it was like, if I speak to my friends and I have the first conversation with them after she's gone, that's kind of like admitting it's all happened and that my life goes back to normal. And those moments are really hard, because it's like you're feeling like you're letting, I used to feel like in those moments I was almost letting her down, because it was like, how dare I move on with my life and speak to my friends? How could I do that when she's not here anymore? But when I think like that, you just remember that she actually wouldn't want you to live life this way. Like my mum literally wants me to live the best version of my life. She wants me to just do everything I possibly want to do. Everybody has said since she's gone, and she always used to say to me, I'm so proud of you, and everyone still says that now, she was so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. So she wants me to live my best life, when in actuality I was proud of being her daughter, and that's all I'll ever be able to argue, is that I was much prouder of being her daughter than she ever was of being my mum. I feel like this has been an emotional, long video, and I want to say thank you if you're still here for watching it. I can't explain how much it means to me to have friends like you guys just backing me every step of the way, and I missed you guys so much, I really did, and I'm so grateful for you all for sticking by me and being here for me. I love you all so much, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. I really hope this video has given at least one person just a little bit of comfort in the strangest way. Listen, nobody's alone in what they're going through. And one thing I like to remind myself of is one of my favourite quotes, which is, the hardest battles are given to the strongest people to show others how to move forward. And I really believe that. So if you're going through something really tough right now, hang in there. I promise you, this isn't going to be your reality forever. I promise you there is light at the end of the tunnel. Even though it doesn't feel like it, there is. And one day you'll be looking back at this as a distant memory, and you will be able to see the lessons that you learned through it, and you'll be grateful for those lessons. Whoever you've lost, I can promise you they're looking down on you right now, and they are smiling because they're so proud of the person that you're becoming. thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was really important to me that I did this. I can't wait to bring you guys my normal, fun, happy content again very, very soon. Thank you once again for everything you've ever done for me. I love you guys so much, and I'm sending you all so many big hugs right now. We're gonna get through it. No matter what you're going through, you're gonna get through it. And I have faith in you, and I love you so much. See you in the next one.